Welcome to A Better Divorce podcast, where we have conversations about the emotional, financial, and legal issues that are on your mind or should be on your radar if your goal is to keep your divorce out of court. I'm collaborative divorce attorney and mediator Andrea Vacca, and I know that how you divorce matters to your long-term well-being. That's why it's my mission to help you have a better divorce with as little acrimony as possible, so that you can create the best life possible on the other side of your marriage. Hello, everyone. I am so happy to welcome Adam Dayan to the Better Divorce podcast today. Adam is a special education attorney here in New York who founded his own practice in 2009, and he has been representing individuals with special needs and helping the parents of children with special needs to plan for their long-term care. He's represented hundreds of individuals with a wide range of special needs here, and he's become one of the premier boutique special education practices in New York City. He is also the host of The Curious Incident, a podcast for special needs families, and where I recently joined him earlier this summer on the podcast as a guest. So Adam, it is so great to have you here. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, I wanted you on the podcast because more and more over the last few years, several years, more and more of our divorcing clients are telling us that their children are struggling in some way and have special education needs. And it's hard enough for a family of happily married, intact parents to deal with these issues. But when a couple is divorcing, it's so much harder. So I thought, let's just start with some basics here. And just as a special education attorney, what services do you help clients obtain for their children who may be struggling with some kind of special need?
So, first of all, I usually like to think about it in three buckets. You can have a child who's in a public school setting and they need more or different supports. You could have a child who's attending a private school setting because the public school system is not appropriate, perhaps, and they need tuition funding or services. Or you can have a child who requires home-based instruction and services because they can't attend an in-person setting due to medical issues or otherwise. So those are a few different settings in which this question can come up. As far as the services that parents can pursue, it's really a wide range. I'll give you some examples. There's speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. There's a one-to-one special educator, an integrated co-teaching classroom where there's multiple teachers in the classroom, a small structured classroom environment where it's a smaller group and more individualized attention. Some students may need applied behavior analysis, known as ABA. Some students may need prompt therapy, which is a form of speech and language therapy. Transportation is a service that children with special needs may be entitled to. So there's really many things, and it just has to do with the particular child and what are this child's unique needs.
Right. And that's what we hear, just such a range of what these issues can be, from the severest situations to just really struggling and needing help, and just not, executive functioning issues and different, needing different therapies. So great to know, the wide range that you can help parents with. But if a couple is divorcing, and they've hired a special education attorney during the marriage, and maybe they have to, I know in New York you have to sue the Board of Education to get the services. They really need an attorney. But if they've hired a special education attorney already, or they think they may need to, but they're no longer living together, they're just co-parenting in some other way, what in particular should these types of parents be thinking about?
So the first thing is I would encourage parents to get information as soon as possible because it can really inform how you proceed. Next, I would say whatever is happening in your relationship with the person you're separating from, try to put aside how you're feeling about that person and focus on the wonderful child that you brought into the world together. Having said that, it becomes important to talk about decision-making authority. Who has decision-making authority for this child? And sometimes it may be clear from a court order or a separation agreement who has decision making authority. Typically, best practice is for a law firm to represent the parent who has decision making authority. But in some cases, it may be joint decision making authority. Or in some cases, that may not be determined yet because they're early in the proceedings. If they have joint decision making authority, we're going to want to figure out, are they on the same page about what they want to pursue for their child? If they are on the same page, that makes it a lot easier. And we can represent both parents, even if they're separated, if they have joint decision making authority and they're on the same page. If they have joint decision making authority, but they have a difference of opinion about what to pursue, that could potentially be problematic. Someone needs to inform that process. And in some situations, there's a tiebreaker, whether ordered by the court or stipulated in an agreement, that a third party needs to chime in and say what is right for the child if the parents can't agree. Depending on the circumstances, in some cases, we may advise parents to go to that third party and get another opinion about what's right for the child. And I would say, finally, on this point, if they have joint decision making authority, meaning in any scenario where someone hasn't said one sole parent has the authority, both parents should be involved in anything pertaining to their child's IEP meetings. IEP stands for Individualized Education Program, any school meetings, any conversations with the special education attorney, and they should both be informed, knowledgeable, and involved in the process.
Right. That'll always be best for the child if both parents are involved. That's right. And there's probably their case looks better if both parents are on the same page. It's more likely they'll get the services.
I think that's an important point. Even if one parent has authority to make education decisions, there could be information that the other parent has that's relevant to the case. There could be a scenario where the other parent is making financial contributions, which we need more information about. And so, even in those cases where one parent has the authority to make decisions, we may still need to speak with the other parent. And this is a sensitive topic that we'll discuss with whoever we're representing, that we want to build the strongest case possible for you and your child. This may require our speaking with the child's other parent. And the way we do that is in the form of some sort of release where the parent we represent, if it's not both parents, gives us permission to speak with the other parent so that we can talk about specifics concerning the case, get the information that we need to present the case, and make sure that they're both informed about how things are going.
Right, right. And just to talk a little bit, just briefly, I'll just, mention, for anyone listening to this, if you're in the process of divorcing, you don't have your agreement yet. But one of the issues in joint, and most of our clients do have joint decision making because they're coming to an agreement. Our clients 99% of the time agree on joint decision making. But there's always that tiebreaker that Adam referred to, because you might not always agree. And so there might be very specific people who are agreed to deal with education decision making if you two can't agree, or if it might be a parenting coordinator that you assign. But even in the best of circumstances, you should always have that tiebreaker in your agreement. Just a little, information there for people. But
And Andrea, I just want to make sure I get this point across, because you mentioned third party tiebreaker, and that can be any number of people. Might be a teacher, it might be a court appointed person, it could be an evaluator. But I want to just emphasize that there are experts. There's a whole world of experts who want to help special needs kids. And consulting with them can give you a lot of insight into what's going on with your child and inform your decision making process. So best to consult with those experts as soon in the process as possible.
yes, absolutely. So expert could be like someone who does behavioral analysis. Like, give me some examples of the kind of experts somebody might want to, be consulting with, or maybe put in their agreement if they know they have a special needs child and they may need to make some decisions.
Sure. Yeah, a great example is a neuropsychologist.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, thanks.
Typically, when children are being evaluated so that parents can understand what are they struggling with and where are their strengths, a neuropsychologist will conduct a thorough assessment and make programmatic recommendations, make diagnoses, whichever diagnoses are applicable, and that serves as a blueprint for what is going on with that child and what is recommended programmatically, educationally for that child going forward. And I also want to emphasize that what the parents want, their goals, are an important part of this evaluation process too. So they meet with the evaluator, they talk about what they're looking to accomplish for their child, what they think is appropriate. If there's any sort of resistance, which does happen, we can talk about that from either parent. The evaluator plugs into that and tries to understand where is the resistance and how can we implement a plan that's consistent with what the parents want. There's other kind of evaluators as well, but I'll pause there for now.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's probably the most common that I've seen our clients have, work with. So that's great to know how that works. And as you mentioned, our divorcing parents are not always on the same page. They often have different views of the child's issues. Very common. We'll hear one parent say they need additional services, they need certain educational support, and the other parent says everything's fine. It's really not a big deal. They'll grow out of it. So, um, so anything that these parents should know from the special education attorney viewpoint, anything you'd want them to know.
Yes, we definitely do see that parents come to us with different viewpoints on what their children need. Some parents may be in denial for one reason or another. Even though I have a psychology degree, I'm not a psychologist, so this is not really our wheelhouse. But sometimes it can stem from worry about stigmatizing their children. What sort of future will my child have if they're categorized or labeled special needs? Sometimes it can stem from overly identifying with their child because they experienced something similar when they were a child. Might conjure up feelings of shame in some cases. And so that can be a really hard emotional piece for some parents to work through. And these issues really do come up. They're real emotional barriers to moving in the right direction and getting what the child requires. We always try to emphasize the positives and the benefits of securing special education, and there are many benefits that come with that. I always frame it as this is an opportunity to get a customized learning plan for your child, which I think anybody, special education or general education, should have. It taps into what are your strengths, what are your challenges, and how can we support you so that you improve in your areas of weakness, taking into consideration your diagnosis and everything else that hopefully a good evaluation has revealed. So it's really an opportunity to speak with your school district and get that level of individualization that can be very beneficial for your child. And I know some people say, I have the same issue. I never got help. And look how I turned out. I turned out just fine. And again, not a psychologist, but we always try to say, think about how much easier it will be for your child if you step in early. How much more confidence will they have in their abilities? How much happier will they be when they're not going into a downward spiral or beating themselves up or shutting down because they feel dumb and they feel unlike the people around them and they just feel like they can't succeed.
Yes. Right. So look past the initial diagnosis and look to all the benefits that your client can get. When you say every child should have an individualized plan, and we're all different. Every person is different, and we learn differently, and we just can't educate every child like that. So the fact that there are these services available and this special education plan is just an individualized plan. It's just such a benefit. So to get past the shame or embarrassment or whatever spin the parent is putting on it and look for what the children need. You had mentioned when we were talking previously that early intervention is key for these students, excuse me. So, what have you seen when there's been a delay, when something is showing itself to be an issue, the parents are fighting over what to do or not doing, and so nothing's getting done. Do you have any examples of what happens when there's a delay?
Yes, and I'll just say that I'm having a physical reaction right now because what you're saying is so important and it's resonating so much. And I think that we are all unique, and it would be great if we all received specialized education, customized, individualized education from early on, but it's not always the case. And I just want to add that I myself have struggled with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and I didn't get support from when I was young. I got it later in life, and it was very helpful. And so I really relate to both the parents and the children because I understand the benefit that the support can have and how much more impactful it can be if you get it from early on. And so which I didn't. And so to answer your question, what can happen? I think it's the things that we were talking about before, and I've seen this with so many of our clients. They can shut down or start to feel bad about themselves or act out behaviorally or socially. And these issues don't tend to go away. They are screaming out for attention because they need attention, and they can get worse. I'll just give you an example that comes up commonly with kids who have dyslexia, and they're struggling to read. If those struggles continue for a few years and everyone else in their classroom is learning, but they aren't learning because they're not getting the proper supports, they do all of these things. They shut down, they hate reading, they don't develop a love for learning, they think they're stupid, they feel bad about themselves, they feel like they don't fit in socially, and it's very hard to undo that. Whereas if you step in early and get them the specific kind of education and instruction, the specific methodology they need, you can teach them properly and avoid the shutting down and the spiraling and those other negative things I described.
Right.
So, as you said, early intervention is key.
Yes. And parenting, co-parenting from different homes, a child that is struggling behavioral wise, emotionally, is so much more difficult. So then the parents aren't there as the same kind of team to help support the child. So, just look down the road at what could happen if you don't get this kind of help. Um, I can see, and even if you do get the help a little later, now these behaviors have set in. It might be hard to reverse all of that, even if they can start learning the way that they need to. That
And in this context, even more so, right? Because they're dealing with the emotional turmoil of their parents separating and all of those ramifications. And so, on top of that, to have I don't want to call it a disability, but a special need, it complicates it even further. And so, I think it's especially important in the context of parents who are separating that they get the support they need.
Yeah. Okay. So when a little bit about, you mentioned you had OCD. Do you talk to your clients about that? If you have a couple in front of you, parents in front of you, and one person is saying he'll grow out of it. I had the same issue and I'm fine. Do you share what you just told us about OCD and how
I do.
earlier intervention would have helped you?
I do share it. And I want them to know where I'm coming from. I want them to understand why I'm passionate about the work we do and how much it means to me to help their kids get what they need.
Right.
And some things don't go away. You can learn how to manage them. OCD is an example. You learn how to manage it. ADHD is an example. There are plenty of other examples. You learn the tools and techniques and strategies that are helpful to you to manage whatever educational challenge you have. But left ignored, they become worse. And so I try to emphasize that point and send that message by relating to our clients on that level. And I find that it makes a difference in the conversation when they understand that you've come from a similar place and get that challenge of having to manage whatever you're struggling with. It makes them pause, take a deep breath, and hear you in a different way than if you hadn't shared it with them.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. Share our own personal stories helps us to relate to our clients. Sometimes I'll share about being an adult child of a divorce, and what it was like growing up with really unhappy parents that should have divorced sooner and didn't. So, you don't have to, I don't have to share that with every client, but sometimes it's really important, to know I hear you, I see you, and this advice is coming from a place of personal experience, not just professional, you know.
Absolutely.
So would you so sometimes I'll have clients, like when I'm mediating, I'll have clients say, "We don't wanna, talk to lawyers." We don't want lawyers involved, or, um, in a certain divorce kind of case, I'll suggest they sit down with a parenting coordinator or a parenting specialist, excuse me, just to get some advice on the kids. And they're afraid to bring these people into their lives. And I'll say, just meet once, see if you can find someone who can give you advice. And do you ever do things like that? Like, can you like suggest just go meet one time with somebody, somebody who can help you, see this from the child's point of view, not just a lawyer, but maybe another type of professional. Does that ever come up to help these clients get off the fence about what to do or get on the same page?
Yes, and I'll use our firm as an example. We offer a complimentary consultation. There's no charge to come speak with us about your circumstances and get some more information about how this process works or who you could be consulting with to understand your child better. And our firm is unique in that we are a one-stop shop in a sense. Whatever you need, whether it's a neuropsychological evaluation or a speech and language therapist or a tutor who specializes in a certain methodology, we're going to connect you with those professionals. So, not to uh, toot our own horns, but a special education law firm is a great place to start with no financial commitment to understand this process better and which experts you can consult with to get the information you need. And I think that's important for parents to know. A lot of people have this preconceived notion about lawyers, and they are concerned about having to deal with lawyers. They're concerned about the expense of working with a lawyer. I think we're the good kind of lawyers because of the nature of the work we do and the people on our team. It's really amazing, passionate people who want to help kids and their families. And on the financial side, it doesn't, for a lot of reasons, it doesn't have to break the parent's bank. And we have the ability to recover legal fees from the school district if we're successful with the parent's case. And the evaluations we've been speaking about, there are ways for parents to get reimbursed or to secure the funds in advance for those evaluations. So there's a whole system set up for parents who have special needs children so that they can access what they need for their kids without incurring a huge financial expense. And I think just taking that first step of speaking with a special education lawyer and getting information can be so powerful, and it doesn't have to cost them anything.
It's a very low barrier to entry. So all different types of families can benefit and work with you or work with a special education attorney in general. um,
Yes.
it- from what you're describing. And then you will help them find, and we do the same thing here, who is the expert, who is the specialist that can best help you assess this situation, and very warm handoff to that person, to make that introduction for them so they can get the advice that they need. So
Yes, and parents are so surprised when they learn about this cottage industry and see the neuropsychologists and the special education schools and the therapists and everybody else who is passionate about serving special needs kids. They just are so surprised that it exists and they never knew about it. And that's why we always try to get parents information as soon as possible because it really is eye-opening.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it must be such a relief because you're living in your own world with your child who's struggling. You don't know who to turn to. You don't know, maybe your friends, families aren't dealing with these issues, the other kids, the other parents, and then to know that, like you said, this whole industry of people caring individuals for them must be such a huge relief.
Yes, absolutely. I've seen that look of relief on their faces. And I'll also say many parents are relying on their school districts. And they think that the information they're receiving from the school districts is all the information or it's the correct information. And it's not always the case. There are some great school districts out there, but it's not always the case, and they're not always going to tell you straightforwardly what your rights are or how you can access more support when your child needs more support. So it's important for parents to be informed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not to the school district's benefit to tell you everything you're entitled to. They are not on your side. They're educating your child, but there's a financial benefit to them not giving you all the information you may need, or to make a real decision. So just understand that. So you had mentioned earlier, so if somebody is hearing this and decides they want to explore, and have that consultation with you, or decide what the next step should be, they just call, they schedule an appointment, and that and they can get all that information that we just talked about. You do an assessment
Yes,
of sorts. Yeah.
absolutely. They'll call our office. We'll do a brief intake and get some more information from them to make sure that it's the type of matter we can help with. And then, assuming that it is, we'll set up a consultation, a complimentary consultation with one of the people in our office to understand their circumstances better, explain to them how the process works, and then if this is something that they want to move forward with, we'll work out those details with them and start representing them once they're ready.
Give the child the help they need.
Exactly.
Thank you. So, Adam, this is so important, such an important information, needed now more than ever. I don't know if it's because of COVID or just the way our world is, but kids are suffering, and parent and families are suffering. The adults are suffering, other children in the family. It's and so the more help you can get your child faster, the better. So, really appreciate.
Definitely. Kids are struggling these days. You're absolutely right. The numbers for anxiety and depression are up. There's been a lot of uncertainty in the world, but the silver lining is that there are all kinds of professionals out there who can help. So if you're noticing this in your child, reach out for help. And for anybody who, just give the podcast a quick plug, because
Okay.
for anybody who's wondering where do I begin, I would encourage you to check out the Curious Incident podcast. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. And the idea is that each episode breaks down a specific area of special needs, whether it's navigating an autism diagnosis or obtaining a neuropsychological evaluation or dealing with private school admissions. And so it's a great place to get information. There's no cost to subscribe, and it can make what might be feeling overwhelming to you if you're listening um, seem a lot more manageable when you know that this is how it works and you're getting the information that's specific to your situation.
Yeah, you really do a deep dive into these different topics, so it's a great place to go. It Yeah, so thank you. I'm glad you get to talk a little bit more about that. So we're coming to the end of our episode here, and I ask all my guests if you have a one better divorce tip what would you offer?
I guess it would be a summary of what we discussed, in that I would say put aside whatever negative feelings you might be feeling toward the person you're separating from. Think about that wonderful child that you brought into the world. Do the responsible thing in consulting with experts who understand special needs, and get the information you need to make decisions, and be thoughtful and open-minded in considering what they're telling you. And whatever you may be feeling about the process, or overwhelm, or anything along those lines, be reassured in knowing that there are professionals out there who really, really want to help and are very capable of helping you navigate this process. And you can get your child the support that they need, and help them be more independent, more successful, and in a happier, better place in their life.
Thank you. So I'm going to summarize that into put your child first
Put
is
your
the
child first.
tip. And everything you said is all about that. Putting them first, thinking about what they need, putting your own hard feelings aside, whether it's about yourself, about your child, about your ex. So thank you. Wonderful
Yes.
tip.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, for joining me today. Really
My
happy.
pleasure. It was great being here. Thank you so much, Andrea.
All right. Well, what's the best way for people to reach out to you and find
They
you?
can check out our website at www.dayanlawfirm.com. They can access our blog there as well. I would say check out the podcast for more information. Curious Incident, a podcast for special needs families. And they can email me directly at adayan@dayanlawfirm.com, or call our office at 646-866-7157.
All right. Thank you. All right, everyone. This has been another episode of A Better Divorce podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode. You've been tuning in to another episode of A Better Divorce podcast with Andrea Vacca. Thank you for subscribing, leaving your positive comments and reviews, and sharing the show with others. You can watch episodes at vaccalaw.com, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can listen through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Bye for now, and remember, you can have a better divorce.